As the harvest continues and possibly goes a bit longer than usual, we thought we'd catch up with grain producers South Australia's Brad Perry. How are you going, Brad?
Yeah, good, thanks, Ricky.
How are the farmers going out there with harvest? A bit of a drier patch of weather, hopefully meaning some crops can come off.
Yeah, I think they're pretty busy at the moment. A lot happy to not have big stints of rain. So there's been some dry days, not necessarily as much sun as we'd like, but a lot of grain producers now, apart from down the southeast, are getting just stuck into some harvesting at least.
And something I thought we'd just pick up on again, what Grain Producers SA had to say not that long ago about the number of not only heavy vehicles such as trucks carrying the grain, but also machinery moving around from place to place. This could actually run a little bit deeper into the summer than people are used to.
Yeah, we haven't experienced a season that's gone so deep into December, January. So we're anticipating that it potentially could go into January, which means it's probably the busiest time of the year for holiday makers and people moving around on our roads over the festive season. So we really want to make sure that we get the message out there that there's going to be a lot more heavy vehicles on the road. So there'll be a lot more passenger vehicles interacting with heavy vehicles. So I think the message is be aware of that, be patient, because, we really don't want to see any accidents happen. So I think it's really about patience this festive period, and also for, heavy vehicle drivers making sure that they're doing the right thing as well.
Well, I noticed recently Grain Producers SA had a good result regarding the harvesting code of practice about fire prevention. On this Tuesday, we're talking the Australasian Fire and Emergency Services Authority Council released their seasonal bushfire outlook, and they didn't really indicate South Australia was a major concern, but there's never place for complacency when it comes to preventing fire.
Oh, that's right, Ricky. I think so. Grain Producers SA has been working with the state government and CFS on they're wanting to roll out the new Fire Behaviour Index cease harvesting code of practice. So essentially there's a number with calculations in the back end that grain producers arrive at and they stop harvesting just to reduce the fire risk. We work with state government to basically be able to use the old code until we can really get the numbers right on the new code. So, look, I think that's been a big win because there is a big difference in the way that the two are calculated. So we're really trying to get our heads around how that works.
Now, something we've talked about plenty leading up to harvest has been also the need for farm labour, but also, I guess, labour when it comes to the logistics, the supply chain, receivable points across the state. Are we hearing that things are sort of backed up a bit, trucks are queued up, or is it all moving reasonably smoothly?
Oh, I have heard some reports where it's taking a little bit longer at some receivable sites, which is probably not unusual at this time. Early on in the harvest, but look, I think we can always encourage more workers into the system. I think it's important, that we do continue to encourage people to come and work in agriculture and grain. But I know, speaking to Viterra as one of the major supply chain operators and receivables, they have been able to, I think, bring in some workers from elsewhere to fill some of those gaps. So that's a positive.
When it comes to, I guess, the moisture that is in amongst the crops, has there been any concerns or alerts to keep an eye out for particular diseases amongst the crop this season?
GPSA recently held a crop disease roundtable, so we brought in some experts on disease, and including agronomists, researchers, etc., and really strong discussion around two particular diseases, powdery mildew in wheat and chocolate spot in fava beans. And I think that there's probably not a lot you can do this season in the short term to battle those diseases that thrive in the wet conditions. But we're looking at what we can do probably in the longer term. So, are there any emergency permits we can apply for? What are some of the things that we can do to put measures in place and learn from this season as far as disease? But I think, Ricky, generally, while there has been some challenges with the wet weather and the moisture that's around, looking at it and hearing feedback. Everything's quite positive at the moment, particularly yield-wise.
Yeah, well, that's a positive. I know there was concerns about quality. Are we seeing a lot more hay cut than people would have otherwise expected before the season? And what are some of the risks that are arising about, I guess, the moisture that's in the hay?
I think hay is going to be a bit of a challenge. So I think there's going to be very varying degree of quality hay. That's mainly because some weren't cut, some were cut, and then had big licks of rain come down. So there is potentially going to be some moisture in hay, but look, farmers will work through that. And I think the feed market's also going to be quite interesting with what's happening interstate as well. So I think the demand will still be there. As far as quality for the rest of the crop, I mean, the bulk of what we grow in South Australia is wheat, and a lot of the wheat's still green. So we're hoping that when that gets reaped, it'll be quite good in protein. And I think we've got an advantage there. What I'm hearing from some of the other stuff that's coming at the moment, so there's been a bit of canola and barley, a few little mould issues, but generally sounding quite positive.
Yeah, positive news, I know, across to the east, a little bit more of a challenging picture, but good to see, especially for those over on the West Coast. Things are ticking along pretty nicely. Brad Perry from Grain Producers SA, thanks so much for joining us today on Flow.
Thanks for having me, Ricky.